I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my blog, where it is both my mission and my simultaneous pleasure to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you and giving you specific takeaways so that way your journey can be at least a little bit easier. Now, before I fully dive into everything, a few things. Number one, I would love to invite you to subscribe if you haven't done so already. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. The second thing is, if you're watching, or perhaps you can hear it, I'm doing a driving vlog. So I do these vlogs every now and then when my schedule gets really busy and, I have to drive to various places, and I figure, might as well utilize the time. I'm just in the car, so might as well talk. And in that sense, I think that's a great way to open up. If you checked out the last vlog, that September is packed for me, right? And it got even more unexpectedly packed and things of that nature. And I'll talk about those things. But one thing I want to start off with is a victory of stuff that's complete. So I'd been putting together this application for Annecy, their residency program. And this is in conjunction with my feature film, The Arbiters. And the residency, as with many residencies, it's you apply, and if selected, you end up going 4 months to essentially work on that project, whatever it is. In this case, a feature film. And so the application had been coming up. I'd been working on it, and it's akin to writing a grant proposal, right? Where there's a lot of aspects that go into it, and you have to, put together a lot of things. And so it ended up being over 100 pages, not because I wanted to write 100 pages, but they had literally very strict specifications of such and such needs to be 15 to 20 pages, and such needs to be another 15 to 20 pages. And a couple of these things, it adds up pretty quickly, right? So by the time I was done, I think it ended up being like between 108 and 117 pages, I feel like. I forget the exact number, but it took me quite a while to put that together. I was working on it slowly but surely over the past month, and a lot of stuff that I wanted to get done, besides that, unfortunately got put on the back burner, a theme of today's episode. But this was a priority, and so I had to make sure it got completed, and I'm glad that I spaced it out over the course of the month to really give it time and thought and revision and things of that nature. So finally completed that, had some people look over it, and then sent it out. So yay, that is done. And in terms of the Arbiters as a whole, there's been a lot of good movement for sure. And so, I'm having to review various proposals and legal documents and things of that nature. And so I'll share certainly more about it when I can. Unfortunately, right now it's very early stages, but know that, things are looking promising in many aspects. Also, a lot of, not necessarily this information, but the process of, where we're trying to get to and how we're getting there, we're going to talk about at LA Comic-Con this year. So we've got a panel called Indie Anime Meets Industry, the bold journey of the Arbiters. And so that's September 27th at 5 p.m. So that's a Saturday in room 407. So my team and I, we're going to be speaking there, and it's going to be exciting. It's a 50-minute panel, which seems like a lot of time, but since I've done these types of panels, it's really not, and especially for the information that we really want to share and get across, plus be able to take questions from the audience to be able to answer. So there's a lot there, but I'm looking forward to that. And so that will kind of help answer a lot of this. Now, if you're going to be there at LA Comic-Con, I would love to see you there. But if you're not, that's totally okay. We're going to record it, post it later, as well, so you don't miss out by any stretch of the imagination. But I also say that because it's exciting, and that's another thing to now sort of work towards. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that's been happening in terms of the Arbiters, and that's great. You want that. It's just when it sometimes gets coupled with all the other things, it becomes not necessarily problematic, but you have to manage your time well. Now, one thing that I was not expecting to have to worry about on top of this already busy schedule is having to get a new car. So for the true diehards, you'll know, and you can kind of spot that the car that I'm driving now is different from the car when I've previously done these on-the-road vlogs. The car I had before was a 2007 Honda CR-V that was passed down to me by my mom, and it served me really well. Got through a lot of productions, got through a lot of day-to-day stuff, and it coming up on 20 years, it just kept needing to be maintained and stuff like that. And at a certain point, it becomes, okay, how much do you keep putting in versus just bite the bullet, and it's better just to get a new car. Well, there was an issue with the car, and normally I go to Firestone to get these sorts of things checked out. So it was the check engine light that had come on, and this is something that at this point had happened a few times, and I gotten it checked out, and it always seemed to not necessarily be a big deal, but it just kind of over time kept coming back more and more. And the same thing every now and then would also happen, where not only the check engine light would come on, but also some other things came on as well. And there'd be times where I was driving, particularly on the highway, and it couldn't go into another gear, right? So if I wanted to go a little bit faster, I was kind of stuck at one certain gear, or I can go lower, but I couldn't get higher. Now, what would end up happening is, at a certain point, I could stop, pull over, stop, and then when I did that, it kind of reset itself, and then wouldn't come back. Now, I'm someone that as soon as there's an issue, I like to get it checked out. So I would keep going and getting it checked out, and it, for the most part, seemed to get fixed and whatever. This time around, they said, hey, there's something we don't feel comfortable fixing it. You would need to go to Honda and get it fixed and blah, blah. So I got the error code and went to the Honda dealership. Now, they wanted to do their own diagnostics, which, okay, fine, understandable, but they wanted to charge nearly $300 just for the diagnostics. I'm like, okay, I get that. But let's assume that it is the issue that Firestone says it is, and they can't fix it. Just humor me, what would it cost for that? And I told them, I get it. I know there might be other stuff, but I'm just trying to just get, if it was that, what would that cost? And they just would not give me any sort of estimate at all. And that's a big problem for me, because I don't want to spend $300 just to find out what I essentially already knew from Firestone, only then to be able to get an estimate of how much it would cost. If it was a couple hundred, fine, maybe. But that's already on top of the diagnostics. And let's say it's more, then it's okay, now I'm paying more money. So it was just kind of a mystery box that, when push came to shove, just wasn't worth it. And not that the car was inoperable, but there was certainly no point in continuing on in this way, because it could become inoperable, and you don't want that, right? Again, part of the mystery box side of it. So on top of everything else that I had to do, I was like, okay, well, let's just figure this out. Let's trade it in. Let's see what the value of this one would be, even if it's a 2007, like whatever we can get for it, we can get for it. And I didn't want like a brand new car, I just wanted a good used car, stuff like that. So all in all, I found a 2023 Honda Civic with low mileage, good price and things of that nature. Ended up going with that one. And it's interesting, car dealerships are always the typical stereotype is like it's just a miserable experience and all that stuff. And yeah, kind of, it's just a grind, and it's unfortunate because there's aspects to it all where like the price that you see, then there's like add-ons, and I'm like, wait, but I don't want the add-ons. Like and they're like, no, well, they're not optional. They're optional, but they're already on the car. Like, okay, well, why is that not part of the price? And I don't want these things. And these are like subscriptions to anti-theft and whatever else. I'm like, but I don't want that. So, I kept kind of hammering of like, I don't need this stuff. So like, why should I have to pay? Like, you should have been upfront about that. So all in all, it's one of those things that you just kind of feel like both parties kind of lost, but in the end, I don't know, it feels like they always win type of thing, right? Where I got them to come down on things, but not like eliminate it completely. And so it is what it is. But I knew time-wise and money-wise, like, what I wanted to and was okay to spend. And I also would just, not that I wanted to like get it done quickly, but yeah, for the most part, it's not like I had like a day or two to really pull this thing together, because like all of us, I have things to do, right? And, the cost of Ubering around LA and various things, is a lot, right? A trip nowadays, I think it's like $50. I mean, even going to the Van Nuys Flyaway, which if you're unfamiliar with, is basically a bus that takes you to the airport. And I'm not that far from it, only like 3 miles. That ends up being like $25. So at the cost of like me getting there, and then now the Flyaway itself, the bus, the tickets are like $15, $20, which is insane. The whole point of those things is that it's supposed to be cheap. All of a sudden, by the time you get to the airport, it's like, how much money? This is way too much money that I spent to get to the airport. I could have, in theory, just Ubered here or found some other way. I digress. So the point being that, no, I didn't want to Uber around. So I had to kind of make decisions quickly. And this is what I ended up at. So we have that. Now, what was already on the docket was that throughout the month of September, I'm moving to a new apartment in Los Angeles. Luckily, I can space it out. It's not just a one weekend type of thing. You normally have to like get out of one apartment and get right into the other. Luckily, I have a good transition period, so I want to utilize that. So I had made one trip and then was coming back to pick up more stuff for a second round on Saturday. And all of a sudden I get this notification on the car that says, tire pressure low, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, what is that? So I'm on the highway. Luckily I was like a minute or two away from my house. So I pull into my driveway and I just hear this hissing. I'm like, That's why the tire pressure is low, is because the tire is leaking. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I had to get this tire changed completely because since I already drove on it it was basically, you couldn't repair it at that point. Unfortunately, obviously, it's not like I wanted to do that. It just ended up being that way. So, just a few days, like just three days, I think it was, after getting the car, I get a flat tire. Now, they give you a 30-day warranty on the car, or whatever. So I took it to the Honda dealership and was like, okay, hey, unfortunately I got a flat tire, like, I'd like to get it fixed. And, they said the tire, can't be fixed, so they have to replace it, and then it was going to cost X amount of money. I'm like, but we're in the 30-day warranty. They're like, no, but this isn't covered. I love when this isn't covered. You always have, whatever it is, you can have the best insurance of dental, health, car, whatever you want, but it's always, oh no, this isn't included. They'll find a way to not include whatever your problem is. They're just really great at that. We're sorry, but this isn't included. So I'm like, okay, well, like, come on, work with me here. Like, I was literally a couple of days ago, and the shitty part too was, so in addition to picking up the car, they didn't have a spare ready, so I had to come in another day when the key guy was there to create a spare. And even the service, the add-on service that I was talking about with the anti-theft or whatever, I was like, hey, so, how's this work? Like, if I'm paying at least partial for it, like, how do I set this up? Like, I haven't gotten any information, whatever else. Like, oh, okay, so I basically went back and forth to the Honda dealership a bunch of times. I'm like, and so by this point, with the flat tire, I look at them and say, you've already been giving me the rigmarole here. Like, I've been here, I just got the car, and the fact that I had to come back another time for the spare keys and this and that, like, come on, like, work with me here. Like, I've done my part when you guys clearly should have had all these things ready. So let's make this happen. My girlfriend, she had a good joke of, once you buy the car, customer service stops. And that's really what it felt like, to the point that they sent me to this tire shop that was a half a mile away, and for them to assess if the tire could be patched up. And I'm like, yeah, but your technician says it can't. What are they going to tell me that's different about it? They're like, no, well, go there, confirm it, and if they think it needs to be replaced, then we'll give you a discount. I'm like, Jesus, now you send me there just to send me back here. Like, what is going on? So I went there. I said the same thing. I asked them for what it would cost. The price was much better, but they couldn't get the tire until Monday. So it would have meant I would have to drop off the car Monday and this, and it's like, I can't do that. So I called the Honda dealership and I said, hey, this is the price that they're offering. And they say, okay, well, we can do, they basically gave the same price plus $30, right? Everyone's just making up numbers, essentially. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go take it back to the Honda dealer. Even though it's more expensive by $30, at least it'll get done today. So we got that done. Yay. So lots of fun stuff. It derailed the day a little bit, but we got back on track. We're able to, move more stuff out of my place, and essentially the stuff that I don't need. So I'm kind of living bare bones to a degree now with my apartment, and creating a mobile setup at the new place and all that. So, it's not my ideal. I don't love it, but, finding a way to make it work. Now, as far as anything else, this weekend I also have a trip. So I'm going to New Mexico. and stuff like that. So, I'm excited about it. It's a good opportunity for sure for what it is. It could lead to some really good stuff, and this was planned for a while, so it's not like out of the blue. But in the midst of all of this, it just tightens the schedule left and right with all these things, especially, hopefully no more car stuff, right? No more car stuff. Like, let's just be done with that for the time being. But yeah, so whenever there's a trip that I have to go to, I have to make sure that I have essentially my mobile setup ready to go, because I can never really like take off time in that way. I have to keep things going in all these other areas, and so I have to make sure that I have access to various files and things of that nature. And usually I try to get as far ahead of things as possible. So that means heading into the weekend, my schedule is obviously compressed, but now I'm trying to just like get everything done as much as possible so it's off my plate, not just for this week, but for the next week, so I don't have to stress about that. So, in an attempt to not stress about stuff, you end up stressing a little bit about stuff, but I don't know, that's just the way I operate in that capacity. And when I say stress, I mean, it's both true, but I've learned to navigate it, not actually have it cause me stress. Like, for me, it's less stress to have things done and just work longer hours than anything else, right? Let's just put it that way. So yeah, I'm excited for that. As I mentioned, LA Comic-Con is approaching, so looking forward to that. And yeah, just kind of all these other things on top of obviously work and various clients and jobs that have been on hiatus because of the summer now are coming back. So not only am I trying to navigate now with their schedule and with my schedule, which is wonky. So it's quite a bit. My least favorite is kind of obviously people's schedules, are what they are, but I hate when like I try to be very upfront about certain things. So for example, there's a client that I work with, and I said, hey, if you want this done, I need this by 4 p.m. on such and such date, because I've got an event to go to, right? So in this case, I'm going to the premiere screening of one of my short films, and I'll talk about that in a moment, and I have to leave by 4 p.m., blah, blah, blah. And, they know this information, then it's like, I understand that they feel bad, but, 4 o'clock is coming up fast, and it's like, hey, any updates? I'm texting them, blah, 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 blah. And I appreciate the, I'm sorry, but I need it done, and don't make me out to be the asshole for pushing you to essentially do your job. And these are sweet people, so I get it. But at the same time, it just sucks, because then I can't, I all of a sudden would become an asshole of like, okay, well, if you don't get it to me by 4 p.m., the thing's just not getting done. And that to people is unacceptable. And it's like, well, listen, I told you. So like, don't make all of a sudden me to be out the asshole if it's not done, because I communicated and stuff like that. It's just, it's just not going to get done. So these are all tricky things that, a lot of people that I know, certainly in the freelancing realm, just have to deal with, where they're waiting feedback from clients and they don't hear. And then, something that my friends and I, again, a lot of them do freelance client work, joke about is like, you won't hear back for like 3-4 months about a project. And it's like, okay, so you've as the freelancer, I've moved on, because obviously you need new projects, you need to be getting paid and this and that. And then all of a sudden that original person comes back and they're like, hey, we're ready to, now do this. So here's our notes and can we get it by tomorrow? And it's like, whoa. It's the you're out of sight, out of mind. Like, I didn't hear back from you for 4 months. What are we doing here? Right? You'd be amazed at how many people do this. In fact, there was a work situation where there was some, there's a seasonal type show that's been happening, and we've been trying to work on something by bringing someone in, and their lawyers, had it basically at the start of July, and finally decided to send back red line notes, and it's like, well, that's basically 2 months later, and the seasonal thing is almost over, so there's no point even in talking about this. So you'd be amazed at just the level of insanity of some of this stuff, which is why I always harp on and set clear deadlines and expectations. In that case, if I was the one spearheading that effort, I'd say, hey, here's the offer, it's good until such and such, let us know. If not, we'll move on, right? A lot of times it kind of happens with actors. So, if you make an offer out to somebody like an A-list celebrity, because you're generally, if they're going to be the star of your movie, especially for an indie movie, you're not going to ask them to audition, so you're going to make an outright offer for them. But at a certain point, you got to start to, go and try to make the movie, unless you absolutely need this one person, and just the movie wouldn't work about them, and that's a different story. But you could send in the offer and say, hey, we'd love to have your client in this role, here's the offer, blah blah blah. And then if time's going by, you say, hey, we really need to lock this in, whatever, give them a month. We need, at least just to hear back, where we stand on things, or whatever else, depending on your timeline, right? So, yeah, I think that's a way to go about it. That's smart. Anywho, speaking of projects, so because September's hectic, I'm going to pause on certain things. So with the episodes that I put out, I'm going to most likely pause. I'll do what I can when I can, such as this. But for the most part, I'm just going to not stress out about it and give myself grace. I'm also pausing my filmmaking how-to book. I've been revising that slowly but surely, and so I'm pausing on that. So anything non-essential. So the Arbiters are going to still keep going. Work's going to still keep going. The move's going to still keep going. Stuff like that. Obviously, LA Comic-Con falls in line with the Arbiters. But everything else, for at least until the first official week of October, so October 6th, I think it is, I'm just going to pause or certainly slow down and allow myself the grace to do that. And I think it's twofold. Number one, sometimes we all do need an actual break from stuff. But in this case, it's less about taking a break and just shifting that time and effort into other aspects of life, right? And I think that's important to recognize so you don't burn out. And again, giving myself that grace, and kind of by extension extending it to you, where if you ever find yourself there's a lot of stuff going on, reshift priorities. It's okay to pause on stuff here and there when your overall trajectory has been a forward momentum. This year certainly has had its various moments. A big example was that during the start of the year with the LA fires. We were revving to go, a lot of great momentum with the movie. Boom, the LA fires happen, and it's whoa, what the, who's affected? Am I affected? This and that. So much is going on that it, for literally pretty much all of January, it derails how you navigate. And yeah, we paused on the Arbiters for a little bit. Like we just went down to like the what are the actual essentials that need to get done while we figure all this out. And then certainly I recovered in that way, and as continues to be the case, I know people that's are living in hotels or Airbnbs, and that's their reality, and try to be them. But at least for me, I found my stable footing, so I can be that person for them, let's say, for lack of a better term. I was, not guide, not anything, but just be there as a resource for people, right? It's a lot easier to be there for someone when you're on stable footing, and I certainly would want that. Conversely, like if I was in dire straits, I want help from somebody that kind of is able to be calm, and has their stuff in place at the moment, right? And we all go through highs and lows, right, of various things. And it's not even a judgmental thing. It's just like depending on what phase of life we're at. If someone is a new parent, right, you're not going to expect them to be able to like be there for you at the drop of a dime, right? Because they're navigating a transition of their life. Transitions is a big theme of this entire year for sure. But all that to say that I'm pausing, and we all have to kind of navigate life in that way of reshifting priorities and making things work. And being honest with yourself of like, okay, am I procrastinating on this, or am I truly like, okay, this needs to happen and stuff like that? Various things, right? So we all kind of have to have a level of honesty with ourselves, and I think certainly, if nothing else, I tend to go the opposite way where, I never think I'm doing enough, so I can tend to go the other way, and this feels like a healthy choice for me for sure to like, okay, let's slow some things down. Excuse me. So now, the final thing, as I'm coming to sort of a slower end of this trip, is that, I'm driving to the premiere screening of my short film festival. So it's part of the Silicon Beach Film Festival, and this is for 5 Minute Film School. I've talked about it before, but I'm just excited to get to see it on the big screen. Unlike with my feature film, Finding Love in Bogota, available on Amazon and on Tubi if you want to watch it for free. This is much more. I just want to kind of see it one time on the big screen and whatnot. And where with that movie, I had sent out invites and kind of kept an RSVP list and all that kind of other stuff. This, I sent out the invites to people I knew. I had a separate chain for the cast and crew, and kind of gave them more information and about various parts of the festival that they could participate in and yada yada. There was an opening night ceremony, and tonight's the screening, and there's the awards ceremony and all that stuff, and there's happy hours for filmmakers and certain sessions and yada yada. Unfortunately, I can't participate in all the things that I would want to, but I did go to the opening night ceremony, and that was fun. I posted a photo from the red carpet on Instagram if you're curious. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting to see the movie, seeing other short films, and I'll film the Q&A, so that way, I don't know what the Q&A is going to be like. Obviously, there's going to be other filmmakers with their short films that would be asked questions, so it's not just a Q&A for me, but I'll film all of it, post it, so you can kind of get a first look at that side of it. But I'm just looking forward to just having some fun, seeing it. And yeah, it's one of those things that while it's a lot for the month of September, it's also one of those things like you want to be able to appreciate it, right? Because blink and you'll miss it type of thing, and they say like years down the line, you'll be sort of reminiscing on this and you'll wish you were as busy as you are. Because it's not like a bad busy, it's an exciting busy, So, yeah, that's kind of where we stand on all of it. Anyway, thank you as always for taking time to tune in. If you have any questions about anything that I've talked about anything you'd like me to cover in the future that I haven't talked about, by all means, comment down below or hit me up on social media at Svitek. Also, one quick other plug, I have a Substack, and there, if you're curious, I did write an article about the idea of knowing when to pause on certain projects and reshifting priorities and stuff like that. So there's various prompts to do a self-reflection on and whatever else. So if you're curious about that, that's on my Substack. So check it out. It is a free Substack. So thank you as always. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.